Welcome back. In this video, I want to address a piece of news that I have just read that is very telling about something I have been trying to warn Democrats and others in my last videos. Zelensky, according to this news, Zelensky reveals that the Trump administration is diverting 20,000 missiles promised to Ukraine to the Middle East. And we are talking about missiles earmarked by the Biden administration. Here we must notice that this could have been prevented if, as I proposed in a tweet, the military aid pledged by Biden had been placed well in advance in a NATO trust. That way, it would have been difficult or pretty much impossible for Trump to divert the Ukraine aid to something else. Yet that should not surprise us after the recurring of hostility of this administration to the Ukrainian cause. Excuse the excuse the Trump administration has used is that the U.S. government needs those missiles for its own defense, as if the missiles were state of the art, the pledged missiles, I mean, and could not have been commissioned conditionally to Ukraine, so they could have called back in the case of an emergency that is not happening. It is not happening in the case of China, even after the show mounted by Hexet about an imminent attack on Taiwan that might have been part of the same setup. So, what is the reason for this change that many were saying naively could not happen after the mineral deals? Is that mineral deal or not, or maybe precisely because of the mineral deal, as Witkoff admits, because Trump wants to do business with Putin, the priority is not Ukraine security, Europe security, and not even the United States security, but the business opportunities Trump might find in Russia and Ukraine once Ukraine is destabilized and turned into Belarus. Add to that the Hexets snap at Western backers of Ukraine who were seeking more air defenses for Zelensky, a meeting to which he simply didn't attend. So there is not even the pretense of caring. There are it is very clear what side they are on. Which brings us once again to the issue of Trump's ceasefire and the lack of clear guidelines to overhaul Europe's defense industry, an issue on which I will never tire of bringing the spotlight. So let's just mention three issues that are related to efficiency, which is hard to conceive without consolidation or regional specialization of the fragmented European defense industry. Number one, the recent debate about a kill switch in the F-35s acquired by Europe brought one which is much more relevant, the dependence of sophisticated weapons acquisitions from the USA on USA on American technical support, whether in software requirements or in supplies or repairs and parts. This dependency must unfortunately end, and hopefully not forever. Hopefully, the Democratic Party will become an alternative Europe and Ukraine can trust in 2029, but so far this is not happening. So, and the American interest will be deeply affected by this decision. So, this dependence on American parts and acquisitions should end. Um, Number two, Ukraine has gone a long way on innovation from DIU do-it-yourself drones to drones that even use artificial intelligence. Yet innovation is not invention. Innovation has its limits, and invention requires the levels of investment in research and development that only big countries and companies can afford. So it's completely justified the concern expressed by Jack Watley that the Russians are not sitting on their hands. They already have the advantage when it comes to mass production of artillery or in electronic war, something on which the Pentagon never could beat them. An improvement in drone warfare in the use of fiber optics and artificial intelligence demand the levels of investment on which Ukraine must participate, as requested by Zelensky's victory plan, which at the time was derided. So we are talking about investments on which Ukraine must participate, especially because their experience or and their predicament that allows them to test all these investments on the field, but are because of the amounts investment that's something on which they cannot lead. When 80% of Russian casualties are caused by drones, this should be a priority for the European overhaul of its defense industry, with Ukraine playing the role of laboratory where new products can be tested, both Ukrainian products and Russians. For instance, the role of fiber optics played in the Russian offensive in Kursk. Yet, despite some improvements in artillery production, we once again have to learn bad news like the decreasing investment in explosives, as well as issues in chip and microchip supplies. This is precisely why the guidelines for this overhaul must be explicit and firm. Otherwise, Ukraine aid will continue looking like a Salvation Army donation rally where every country gives to Ukraine what it wants, what it has left, and in the amount that it wants. And let's not forget that resources dictate a strategy. So that's not a way to win a war. And here we are talking about something that is very, very important. Ukraine has all about 1 million seasoned soldiers in their army. For political reasons, Europe is very reluctant to send its own troops. It's in the best interest of Europe to stop fooling around and start getting serious on defense. So the 800 billion euros committed was the first easy step. Now it comes the step that really matters, which is the consolidation of Europe to make sure those 800 billions are not wasted. In the long term, the balance, as Jack Watling noticed, will tilt in favor of Europe. Yes, but not if Europe neglects the transition during which it will have to catch up with Russia. Once again, Europe has 10 times Russia's GDP. The problem is the transition. But the transition could be easily derailed, as we remember in the case of the New Generation Fund, created to address the issues on productivity found in the Draghi report. And the mass media has a huge responsibility to bring issues like these, issues in the overhaul of the European defense industry to the spotlight in order to prevent on time that this could later on have tragic consequences. The loss of Ukraine and Trump and Putin, not even China, deciding the role of Europe in a world ruled by spheres of influence would be something that would be a scenario that will inflict a heavy toll in Europe. And in that world, Europe will be an energy vassal of Russia. So it's time for them to get serious, if not for Ukraine, for their own interest. But transparency is a must in the case of guidelines to make sure countries that are not properly aware or feel they are too far from Russia to really care to prevent that these countries continue fooling around. And having said that, I leave you with our newscast.
Good evening. This is Brian Thomas Simons, and these are the main headlines of this hour. Among other news,
5. Fox News host Jesse Waters has unusual courtesy with Newsmax host who alleged Trump and Elon were in cahoots to sink budget bill. Makes sense, says Waters. Fox News host Jesse Waters said in his show that Newsmax's theory that Trump and Musk were secretly in cahoots to sink Trump's big beautiful bill, his tax cuts and budget bill, makes sense. If you consider that the plan is to then blame it all on Eric, it makes sense, concluded Waters. Newsmax Carl Higbee today elaborated more about his theory. Elon has to do it right for the president after all the noise he raised last week in X, or our beloved President Trump will send the IRS to audit him. And now that he has dumped Eric into Musk's family, Elon better do it right this time, concluded Higbee. 6. Secretary Leavitt condemns The Independent for its story, Trump conducts weirdest exit interview in history as Musk departs the White House. Adamant, Secretary Leavitt condemned an article that appeared on The Independent in which President Trump is ridiculed for his assessments in an event that marked the exit of billionaire Elon Musk from government. Therefore, Secretary Leavitt declared that, a. The mention of transgender mice was completely justified since, confirming Alex Jones's theories, the NIH had been experimenting with mice to produce a virus that would turn male Americans into transsexuals. Male Americans should be profoundly grateful to our president for having saved their virility, concluded the press secretary. B. Musk's alleged prolific use of horse tranquilizer has been validated by the new scientists hired by Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. It's good for our health and President Trump is going to propose including it in Medicare D, clarified Leavitt. C. The president is correct. A nuclear war between India and Pakistan is not one of American foreign policy priorities, but if they run out of nukes, we could sell them some of ours. In fact, that provision has been included in the Big Beautiful Bill, confirmed Secretary Leavitt. D. A potential pardon for Sean Diddy Combs, should he be convicted, is actually under consideration. The pardon would be conditioned on Mr. Combs purchasing an amount of Trump meme coins that will depend on the terms of the sentence. The harsher the sentence, the higher the amount. It's only fair, concluded the press secretary. Finally, with respect to the former Doge leader at one point rolling his head around to stare at the ceiling as the president spoke, Leavitt justified the moment by saying that it was related to his 5-year-old son who had given him a black eye. It just happened that he heard his son talking to him from the ceiling, and Musk, being the good father he is, turned to hear what his son was trying to communicate to him, concluded Leavitt. 7. President Trump arrests South African president for white genocide during his visit to the White House. President Trump used the visit of South African President Ramaphosa to arrest him for what he denominated as cases of white genocide in South Africa. Secretary Leavitt declared to the press that President Ramaphosa was under arrest and that, according to the Insurrection Act of 1807, President Trump will not deport him or order Attorney General Pam Bondi to open a file on Ramaphosa but will sell him as a slave. The 14th Amendment wasn't passed until June 13, 1866, and the Insurrection Act is of 1807, so it's perfectly within the president's powers to sell him as a slave, concluded the press secretary. 8. Cryptic meme uploaded by President Trump to Truth Social explained. Last Wednesday, President Trump shared a meme of himself walking down a dark city street with all-cap text that read, "He's on a mission from God and nothing can stop what is coming." The post had no visible context to explain it, yet, today it was revealed that it was a continuation of the campaign, Time to Return to God, promoted by the Conservative United Conference of Catholic Bishops to celebrate the election of an American Pope, Pope Leo XIV. The core of the campaign is to adapt the teachings of Leo XIV to the faith of real Americans. Thus, when the new pope says that you should love the foreigner, the orphan, and the widow, what he really means is that you must send them to Socorro in El Salvador. And when he speaks about Jesus's love for the poor, what he really means is that the rich need another tax cut. It's just a way to show that, if Jesus had voted in 2024, he would have voted for President Trump, added a conference spokesman.
This has been the news of this hour. Sponsored by Church of the Holy Redeemer's Power in the Spirit. Have you accepted Jesus Christ as your personal Savior? Did you vote for Trump in 2016 and then in 2020? This is the right church for you. If so, Church of the Holy Redeemer's Power in the Spirit is the only Christian church that can promise you in the Lord to have 72 virgins in heaven for only a donation of $50 a month. You will have access to those 72 virgins in heaven. For an additional $25, you will be allowed to replace 10 of them, and for $100, Heaven Premium, you will be allowed to choose them for yourself. Guaranteed, if you're not satisfied with those 72 virgins after you die, full refund of your money. We accept Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover.